Yeah. I don't know either, but it's quite going the other way and a costume like that. Whatever. We'll drop it.
Hi, everyone. This isn't actually an official meeting, it's an intergovernmental thing, but someone's gotta run it, so here I am. I'd like to thank all the township representatives that are here and everyone who showed up. And if people are still coming in, if you could sign in with Angie, if you haven't, that helps with the meeting minutes. With that, I'll turn it over to Tim France from Public Administration Associates to do the report. He promises me it'll be shorter than 2 weeks ago. If he's lying, we'll fix that later. All right, you want me to stay here? Move?
That's up to you.
All right.
So, all right, thank you, everybody, and again, my name's Tim from Public Administration Associates, and had two of the other partners of our company worked with putting this report together, analyzing overall the department, and next slide will show you just generally what we were looking at over the last year or so. So some of the general things we're looking at is that in this report is the growing need for service demand and putting somewhat of a strain on the current resources of the department. Calls continue to grow over the years, and we have the same number of people and resources doing that. And this is a trend that's seen pretty much in just about every community in the country. And then, so the other things are also we're going to look at is the trends on meeting future demands as the workforce is changing and the impacts that it has on staffing the department now and in the future. And looking at the future, resources must be devoted to recruitment and retention of the paid on call personnel. More resources, more time, more effort needs to be put to that. Those numbers are difficult to get. We'll talk about those numbers here in a little bit. But then as a backup plan, we have to look at what if or when, if and when that doesn't continue to work, how can we continue to staff and make sure that you've got personnel available to respond? And what would a staffing model to do that look like? Another thing that we looked at with this, and this was actually started to be looked at with the townships before COVID, and then it kind of got put on hold. So I was asked to continue to look into it and move forward, talk about how the efficiency of operating separate city and rural community fire departments and what could potentially be done with that. And then also looking at the rising cost, like it is with everything for both operations, and a big one really is capital equipment, and that really has an impact on operating that department separately. So some folks in the community that when I would just casually ask them if they really understood that there's two separate fire departments operating out of one station, and quite frankly, a lot of folks weren't really even aware of that's how things work. But you know, they don't know a lot of the details of usually public safety departments anyway. But so we have two departments, two separate distinct fire departments operating under one roof. The city fire department, which has two engines, a ladder truck, a squad truck, two chief officer vehicles, and the community department, which has an engine, a tender, water tanker truck, because there's no municipal water supply, the brush truck, and two ATVs, all in the same station. Next, please. Yeah. So with those resources, one of the things that I want everybody to remember is that one of the new kind of business sayings is to begin with the end in mind. Why do we need all this stuff? Why do we need all these people? Firefighting is manual operation for the most part. Fire trucks don't put fires out. The people that respond on them do. And no matter how much equipment that we have, we still need people. And this is just in general, for a basic structure fire, a house. Okay, and the minimum number of people that it takes to operate in this is about 15 to cover all these spots. And the first 5-10 minutes of the fire is where those needs really are, where those critical things that there are a lot of these tasks that need to be done simultaneously. It can go up as high as 17, depending on whether we're engaging an aerial ladder or not in it. Okay, or some of the other changes. So, but 15 is kind of the minimum that's there. But there is a little bit of a change to this that you're gonna see that I'm gonna talk about a standard called NFPA 1710 and 1720. It's not the law, it's a national standard that talks about how many people should be deployed to a fire. And they distinguish between urban, suburban, and rural. And having fewer people for urban surroundings and rural. And the main thing with that is exposures, how close the buildings next door are. Okay. Because really the main intent, we want to keep, we do life safety is number one, but the next thing is we don't want to start more than one building on fire, you know, and then hopefully confine it to something much less than that. So to do that, two departments actually do this with shared staff. So there isn't totally distinct personnel, they are and they aren't. So on the city department, which is all of the members, there's the chief and the assistant chief, which are full-time personnel. Then we have the paid on call, which is 2 captains, 2 lieutenants, and there are overall 28 authorized paid on call firefighter positions that respond from work home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they train the first and third Monday of the month. The community department, or the rural, sometimes it's referred to, we have a chief and assistant chief, which are the same chief and assistant chief of the city department. And we have a captain, which is also shared, a lieutenant, and then 14 of the city personnel are also members of the community or rural fire department. So it isn't, they're not separate, they're also members of the city. And then they also have 2 more training nights on the 2nd and 4th Monday of the month. So those members on the community department are actually there every Monday of the month, with the exception of like this week when it was the 5th Monday. Oh, thanks. So investments that are made by the city, we found on this really benefit all the residents served by not just the city, or the city and the community department. So in looking at them, some of the things that in this report that we call it benchmarking, look at what is the department doing and how does it match up to national standards. Some of the NFPA, another one is Insurance Service Office. This is a key one, okay? And ISO, by this rating, it determines on what people, depending on your insurance company, not all, but most of them use this. They determine based on this rating what you pay for your homeowner's insurance. And it's on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the best. Okay, so 3 areas are covered in it: radio dispatch, water supply, which in the rural areas, there isn't one, and then the fire department. Maximum credit is for those areas within less than 1.5 miles of the station. Then they have to be within 5 miles to receive fire department credit. And then they also are accredited by the number of personnel. I like to see 4 people per company. And the way ISO looks at it with paid on call staff is they roughly look at whatever number that you have. They assume about 1/3 is going to be available at any given time to respond. Okay, and that's kind of relevant because I'm going to say that I think you should probably bump your numbers up on paid on call if possible to try to get that actual response number better. Current rating for the city and the district is 3-3 Here was an interesting thing that I discovered with this. ISO did not rate this as 2 separate fire departments. This is important for the community members to know, is that the ISO looked at it as just 1 fire department. They didn't distinguish that it was 2 different ones. So when I say that the community members are benefiting from city investments, is that all of the apparatus are looked at as being 1 department. Okay, so they don't look at the rural area being served by a single engine and tender. it looks at that they're being served by 3 engines, a ladder truck, a squad, and vice versa. Okay, same thing with the total number of personnel. They look at not the 14, they're looking at the 30. And that goes with all of these different pieces of it. I can tell you how I can really see that is because if it were a single engine and tender department, it would be very unlikely that you would have this, the 3Y rating is the second part of it. That's for the rural areas that don't have a municipal water supply. So it'd be very unlikely that you would achieve that number. I don't know what it would be, but it certainly wouldn't be that. Okay, because they're looking really almost as I said, looking at it as one department. Okay. Next. So some other things looking at, and just going through some of the background of it, of everything right now, is the demographics of the department. And it skews on the older side, even despite the years of service. And there's some trends on here that aren't good for the moment that we look at. One of them is on the left side shows the age of department members, and that currently there are no members under 30 years of age. On the right side is tenure with the department, and we have only 3 members with less than 5 years. We've got a clump of members in that 6 to 10 year range. And some of that has to do with why things get clumped like that, is there was when those folks came on, there was a fairly big group of retirements from the department. So sometimes there's cycles that are built in that way. Okay, but right now the cycle, the tendency is not different when I talked about employment trends that are out there everywhere. It is no different with paid on call departments. It is getting difficult to recruit volunteer paid on call members. It is not unique to the city of Waupun by any means. I do this all over the state. And one of the things why I'm being kept very busy right now is this problem. But if we look at it, because some people say, well, why is this happening here? It's happening everywhere. NFPA, which a lot of the data and the comparison stuff that I'm giving you is from nationwide NFPA surveys. And also that when you get into the details of it in the report, that back in, they went back in 2020 and took a look back to 1984. And they saw that we went from 897,750 volunteer firefighters down to 676,900 during that period nationwide. Okay. And so it's not just here, it's declining everywhere. If you want to Google it, when I speak in different places and to try to get people to listen or think about it, you're in not a terrible position here yet, but there's a lot of places where they are already in crisis mode. That they can't guarantee that when someone dials 911 that anybody's even going to respond. And the farther north we go in the state, to some extent, the worse it gets. And north and west. But is this just a fire service problem? We just went, and police chief and I were talking about this just before it started. Why I put another little piece of data in here is that there was just a study in the state, and in the latest census that was taken, and that U.S. Census Bureau in America reports that AmeriCorps reports that there was a 15% decline since 2019 in volunteering in the Badger State in Wisconsin. This isn't nationwide, just specifically in Wisconsin, which is volunteering at a nonprofit organization, which is similar. Okay, and I just challenge you because everybody starts pointing fingers when who should volunteer, who should be a paid on call firefighter. And reality is that who's volunteering, and pick the organization that you're involved in, and I hope you can tell me that things are successful and you've got people beating down the door to want to be help and part of the organization. I'm assuming not, and it isn't just in that. I know some places are struggling just to get people to fill government positions, correct? You know, that, you know, it's just, this is a situation that we're all facing right now. It isn't just, it's in that, it is also in, full-time employment. You know, it isn't just in that. I'm not gonna tell you that magically, if we just say, okay, everything's going to be career, that's gonna solve all the problems either. Recruitment is a big problem today and everything, but it certainly is with getting paid on call folks. One of the things that I ask as you move forward in this thing, in an open mind and discussions, I've talked to the mayor about this, talked to the members of the department, that what are the answers to this? And there's no specific one, but I can tell you that we totally need to change the model and the effort we're putting forward on recruitment and retention of paid on calls. It's just money, there's other things that I'm talking about that's gotta be done for that, things that I know sometimes it's gonna be I started off as a volunteer firefighter, my brother's still the assistant chief. And I'll just bring up one little anecdotal thing here that I had a discussion with him this last week again, about recruitment and retention. That as a perk for their firefighters, they had a space in the department where they could watch their vehicles. Somebody complained, no, you guys can't do that anymore. That's a perk, that's a benefit. My answer to that is, if you would like to have some of these benefits, please step up. I'm sure that we could do that, and those are gonna be some tough things as the representatives here that you might have to do, where people say, well, why? Why? When someone calls 911, they have an expectation. Don't forget that that's what you need to do, is be able to put folks in place to make sure that that happens. Okay, so it's gonna take some changes.
Sorry, we're having a technical
That's all right.
challenge. Hold
That's
on.
something so radical, it loses us.
No, we may have to sign back in. People are having a hard time getting in, so I was trying to figure that out, sorry. Hold on. Let's start this, let's see if this helps.